basically just get right into it. And I was listening to your podcast on London Real just yesterday, actually. And you have a very unique background. You actually, I believe, left school at the age of 16 or 17. And then you
16.
got in 16, correct. So just for our listeners who might not have heard that conversation with Brian, could you maybe go into a bit of your history and what brought you to where you are today in your current career?
Well, yes. I mean, my background is, everybody has a story. And for me personally, it's always been a case of remembering my roots. I'm a normal guy. I'm no special or better or worse than anybody else. And to have the ability to have lived the life I've lived, I'm very blessed and humble. But it's nothing special based upon ability or anything like that. So I dropped out of school at 16. I grew up as a fairly normal background. I've got no special qualifications. I've got a PhD in results, which I tend to rely a little more on than anything else.
Well, they speak for themselves. So
and results in all different aspects, because I believe that failure is your biggest capital. But for me, my background, I started my first business at 17. I was always wanting to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to go out there and create a life rather than accept a life. And I think that's just a fundamental decision. And for me, it was fairly simple. While my parents wanted me to go to university, which was never going to happen, luckily I never suffered the disadvantage of college. And so it was a case of, I knew that if I accepted a job for somebody else, then I was always going to be trapped in a position that paid me less than what I was worth.
Right. Yeah.
And why would you settle for that? I mean, not as a first choice, maybe as a last resort, but at 16, getting out into the real world to swing the bat, let's go play. Let's at least give me a shot at this thing called life before I sell out in a job I don't like, working for somebody who doesn't care. It's to survive long enough to complain about it to people.
Absolutely. You touched on something that was really interesting there, and I had this conversation. I'm involved with a local men's group, and there's a gentleman there who he's not happy in his career. He works in IT. He works for a big company. He feels like he's underappreciated, not really satisfied in his work at all, not heard. And he has this passion, and he wants to go into doing some kind of work, personal development, men's work, that kind of thing. And one of the blocks he has is that he feels like he's not qualified to do that job. And like you said yourself, you don't really have any qualifications. You're a self-made person. So what advice would you give to somebody who wants to make a career shift that feels like they need to go get a degree or some certification before they can do that?
It's a very common pattern, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what they think it has something to do with. It's got nothing to do with experience. That's the excuse that the left brain is generating to stop you facing your fear. What you're really looking for is certainty. You believe that an experience or a degree or a certificate or a qualification will give you that certainty. And the trap you're falling into is one that I see so many people do. You're chasing skills to get certainty. Now, the problem with that is, let's just look at it for a second. You're looking for something external, a piece of paper signed by somebody you don't know that validates your intelligence from their perspective. I mean, you couldn't make it up, right? But let's just go along with it for now. Okay, I've done something, passed an exam, which validates my memory on how to pass a test. So I'm looking for something external in order to give me something I'm seeking internally, which is a feeling of certainty. Mm-hmm. And most people that chase skills to get certainty end up with more skills and still no certainty. So I took the course on how to be a counselor so that I could go counsel people, because I thought, even though people said I was good at it and it was a passion, oh no, I need to get a qualification. And now I've got a qualification, still don't feel as if it's the right thing. So I know I need the advanced course. And then the advanced course, then the trainer, train the trainer, train the trainer's trainer, and so it goes on. And what you're really doing, you're on this hamster wheel of desperately seeking certainty through the vehicle of acquiring skills. And it is a poor trade-off. No, You achieve certainty by going into the field and embracing uncertainty. Now, if there's certain technical aspects that need to be acquired at that point, they will present themselves, and at least then you'll have some knowledge of what it is that you really need in order to be more proficient at what it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
But using that as a first base excuse by saying, "Oh, I'm not qualified to go and do that. I need to go get some experience." No, you don't. You've got everything you ever need. Why? Because you're made of the same stuff as the people that you're talking to.
Mm.
And so being able to have that level of understanding that I need to go to college to get my experience, to get my degree so I can go. No, you don't. If I'm a CEO, and I've been CEO of many of my own companies, and I'm sitting in front of somebody that wants to hire me, and somebody gives me a beautifully crafted, drawn up, well put together, envious resume, and they're lacking certainty, which is usually almost goes hand in hand, because the reason they've got all their qualifications is because they're desperately gone around searching for it.
Yeah.
Or I get somebody in front of me that says, "Hey, listen, I don't have, all of the requirements that you listed in the advert, but I'm teachable, I've got passion, and I want this job so bad I can taste it, and just give me a shot." My money's on that person. Right? Every time.
Yeah.
I can teach skills. What I can't teach is certainty.
So you can't teach certainty, right? Now, that is something that's obviously going to be acquired by the individual. And if someone is uncertain, how can they go about developing that inner confidence, that certainty, to go out in the world and do something for themselves, as opposed to just working for the man all day long?
Right. I'm going to equate this to health as a metaphor, so that people can understand a little bit. Health is one of my 5 passions. And health is such a complex area when it comes to people selling stuff, because the more they can confuse you, the more they can deliver their argument with certainty, the more you'll be tempted to buy it in the confusion. So health, I simplify down into 3 things. Everything in health comes down to physical health. I'm talking right now. Yeah. Comes down to essentially one of 3 categories you can chunk into. 1, stop putting the wrong things in. 2, start putting the right things in.
Yeah.
3, get the things that shouldn't be in there out.
Absolutely.
We'll call that a detox or a cleanse or whatever, right? So that's as simple as you can get it. So now let's come back to how do you get certainty? How do you get rid of these us? Stop putting the wrong things in. What caused you to be uncertain in the first place? Self-doubt. What caused that? Listening to other people say you couldn't rather than people that said you could. Looking around and hanging out with the wrong peer group. People that don't inspire you, but people that want to bring you down to their level so that they can wallow in their own excuse for not stepping out of their comfort zone. So stop putting the wrong things in. Stop listening to the media. Stop being fed why life doesn't work, and start realizing it does. 2, start putting the right things in. Start hanging out with people that inspire you, that say you can, that come from possibility, not limitation, that come from abundance, not scarcity, that come from wanting to light you up. So there's 2 types of people in life. There are radiators and drains. We know who they are. Some people will suck the life out of you like a mood vampire.
Oh, yeah.
Others will light you up like a Christmas tree. And we get to choose in today's society, unless we're in a prison cell, right, with 3 inmates we didn't choose. We actually get to pick who we want to hang with. Right? So start putting the right things in. Start programming. So I promise you, if you hang out with 10 people with less qualifications and more certainty about why they can go out and do it anyway, you'll become the 11th. And you won't need to go to college or night school or take the next seminar or advanced class to be able to do it. Okay, 3, get the things that are currently in there out. Now, here's where we come down to understanding patterns of behavior and limitations that are self-imposed, but are now real because we've been doing them over and over again. We do very little out of reason, unfortunately. We do a fair bit out of passion in the moment, but 90% of what we do out of habit. We're creatures of habit. That's how we evolve. It's useful because we don't have to learn to walk every day. It's a beautiful gift, but indifferent to the nature of the input. So therefore, I have a pattern of always making excuses to sell out. Why is that? Because patterns, unfortunately, transcend logic and intelligence. Oh, I know I shouldn't do that. Well, of course, everybody knows they shouldn't do that. They just don't do what they know. So what's really causing that? It's a pattern, a limiting belief behavior. And most of the limiting beliefs that we get, and you can go to virtually any modern psychology school right now that has its act together. We're not talking about 100-year-old model of the guy that started the industry that was a self-confessed cocaine addict and had fancies about his mum. We're talking about modern psychology here, right? Nothing against Sigmund Freud, but his model was unfortunately exceptionally limited. Great for the time, pioneer of the industry, being facetious with the name, but ultimately in today's world, it would be like putting a 15th century Olympian next to Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
Two different categories.
Exactly.
So, right now, most psychologists will agree that most of the limiting patterns of behavior are in our formative years between 0 and 7 years old. If you look at the brain at that point, it hasn't yet evolved. The brain goes through its own level of puberty around about 7 years old, where prior to that, it doesn't even access on any kind of consistent basis the brain patterns of beta and alpha consciousness, which is what we use day to day when we're talking to each other right now.
Right.
It's logical thinking, it's present, it's processing, it's weighing up, evaluating. And the reason for that is when you're born, you've got nothing to evaluate against. So therefore, what the brain does, it knows it has to go through super learning. What state brain or brainwave state is super learning? It's theta. It's where you put into hypnosis through theta these days, because people don't go there unless they're just drifting through it on route to delta to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So kids predominantly live from 0 to 7 in theta. Now in theta, you are being programmed, bypassing any logical ability to question or comprehend. That's why you get a kid wake up out of a nightmare because there was a monster, and you tell him that the monster's not in the room. There's no differentiation. The monster's still in the room. Same as the dream, same as the room. It's the same thing. So we're constantly taking on, the best example of this is language. Everybody learns to speak their first language without going to school, without sitting in a class, without understanding grammar and punctuation, inflection of voice, tonality, ambiguity, and all the rest of it. No, it's an amazingly complex skill. But by 3 years old, we're doing it before we go to school. And that's because in theta, you take on your environment at a rapid pace of learning. Now, unfortunately, what that also means is the two people that are closest to us during that time, our parents, we mimic, take on, and pull in to our world most of our formative levels of reasoning, understanding about what life is, global beliefs, meaning from our parents. So if dad was angry, we would equate loud voices to fear as one example. And there's many, but so a lot of the limitations that people have, they say, oh, I can't do that, or they make an excuse, are nothing more than playing out patterns that they took on board from 0 to 7 and were never really told what they were so they could deal with them.
Right. So we've acquired this set of limiting beliefs from our parents, from our environment, peer group, teachers. We're just essentially downloading this stuff as children. And from my understanding of it, these types of behaviors, these thoughts, maybe your shadow, you might want to call it, are deeply ingrained. And it's difficult for people to get over them. And a lot of people aren't even aware that they're in them or have them. So where would somebody start if they feel like they want to move forward in life and they have all these limited beliefs holding them back? How would you recommend somebody starts working towards overcoming those limiting beliefs?
There's some of the usual suspects. Some of the most common predominant patterns. And I'm a great believer that virtually all roads lead to Rome. The primary fear that we have as human beings is the fear that we're not enough. And this comes from our earliest memory, from realizing that love is something that we have to earn by behaving ourselves, and therefore we project that for the rest of our life. So the usual suspects are, you hear me talk about my concept of GOOP, GOOP, good opinion of other people. Most people are so desperately seeking approval, validation, significance, acceptance, that their entire behavior is crafted around that. Now, because it's unconscious, we go living our lives on autopilot, never being aware and just calling it our personality and justifying it. So I would first ask the question. Questions are great. Questions direct focus. If I say, what's your favorite color? I can take your mind and point it in the direction that I want.
Yeah.
As opposed to what's your favorite food, or what are you doing tomorrow? I mean, I have control over people's focus through questions. So ask yourself better questions to direct the focus to find out. One of those questions would likely be, what is it that I do almost anything to avoid having to feel? What are the emotions that are so painful for me that I automatically adjust my behavior to avoid them even when I'm not aware of it? And you'll come up with a list.
Yep.
For, again, some usual suspects, rejection, being a big one, usually for guys.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Guilt, usually a popular one for women. Yeah. And you'll have ultimately fear, but usually fear that we're not enough, and therefore we won't be loved as the link.
Yeah.
So for me, ask yourself better questions. And for a lot of people, they're just not trained to ask. That's not a slight on them. It's where do you go to learn this? Most psychologists aren't qualified. Most life coaches aren't qualified to handle their own patterns, let alone project them onto other people and their clients, which is 80% of life coaches that I've met and coached.
Yeah.
It's great. How can I distract myself from having to look in the mirror and step up my own game? Oh, I know. I'll go focus on helping other people get through stuff so I can talk about it rather than do it.
Right.
It's
so
you
common,
don't trust
right?
a skinny chef. Yeah. That's why you should never trust a skinny chef. Never hire a fat personal trainer. Don't hire a life coach that doesn't have the lifestyle you want. Most are hoping you're not going to complain at their $100 an hour bill because they need to make it for their mortgage rent.
There you go. So, in this age of self-branding and life coaching, personal development work, whatever you want to call it, how would you recommend somebody read through all of the personalities out there, some of which, like you said, might be a little bit self-serving and avoiding their own promises to make a career for themselves? How would you recommend somebody go searching for that true, authentic coach that's going to draw out the best in them?
Cool. Couple of ways. One, don't overthink it. All right. Any material that you read, especially that they're putting out, is only designed for one thing, and that's to give you their model of the world as to why you should pick them. Ultimately. Yeah. And because what we're really ultimately searching for, let's come back to it again, is certainty. I want to be certain I'm going to pick the right person. So therefore, it's almost like as in the entrepreneur world. When I've got a hole in my business because let's just say my customer service manager's left and I'm desperate to have one. So now I'm looking for, what is it that I can make you fit my pictures for? I'm desperate. You're coming to me for the job and I'm hoping that you fit because I've got a need for you. I'm not sitting there with a really good customer service person already and 5 people showing up saying, I want to try and see if you can hire me to replace them. Now I can sit back and be picky. Now I can sit back and really pick the right person. But most people aren't. They go to a life coach because they're desperate to try and improve the circumstances of their life. And therefore, they're looking for someone that looks good, sounds good, smells good, and can give them the certainty they want. It's the wrong way to do it. So don't buy into any of the stuff. Gut feel is a huge part of this, not scarcity, which comes from the head. Okay? Not trying to logically weigh it up. Okay, lead with your heart. You still have to take your brain with you. Don't get me wrong. This isn't a fantasy fall in love with them kind of deal. It's a case of, are they, do I get a sense about this person? What's my intuition say? What's my feeling center say as much as my thinking center? And go ask to speak to some people that they've helped and find some feedback from them and ask them questions. If they're not willing to put you in touch with clients that they've helped, then why the hell should you trust them?
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
And B, if you
Referrals.
do speak, yeah. And if you do speak to people, because they're obviously going to give you people that they want to have a glowing thing for, don't just ask open-ended questions. Oh, what's it been like? Right? No, that's okay. What's the biggest downside of working with this person? What's the one thing you want to change about this person? Why do you think it suits your personality? Why did you pick this person over somebody else? Ask more intelligent questions. You can start forming a picture. And then you've got some more objective information on which to base yourself, to move forward. That'd be kind of my recommendation.
Excellent. And, I was looking through your website earlier today and looking through some of your old videos, and you have an online business school as well. And
online and in person.
Online and in person. What would you say distinguishes your school going through the online or in-person training that you offer compared to going to traditional business schools or universities?
Oh dear, where do I start? See, now you're going to get all my positive spin on why you should attend my stuff. But no, what does a traditional business school do? It doesn't prepare you for business. It teaches you how to analyze and mitigate risk, how to put budgets together, how to have a spreadsheet. Where's the getting in the trenches? Listen, take the last $200 out of your pocket and stick it on the table, and let's swing the bat. Where is it right? Let's go negotiate in a real scenario. There's none of that. It's all case studies and turn up for class and usually listen to people who are very qualified at teaching but have never run a business.
Absolutely. So you have the real world experience that you could transfer to people based on the results you've created. You've started over 20 businesses. You've created great results for yourself, and you do seem like you'd be an excellent mentor for somebody looking to get into any entrepreneurial venture. What do you think are some of the major fundamentals of entrepreneurship? What are those key things that you think you should communicate to anybody that wants to become an entrepreneur and break out of the traditional 9-to-5 workplace?
First things first, understand that there will never and never has been a better time in human history to make that decision. If you're waiting for it to, for the weather to be perfect, it usually never is. But now, guess what? It just happens to be perfect weather to be an entrepreneur right now. If you're not going to do it now, stop kidding yourself that you're going to do it some other time. The barrier to entry is so low these days. The opportunities are so great. The ability to, as I say, what I used to have to put $1 million in capex, capital expenditure to be able to create, you can now get for $10 a month on a smartphone, on an app. It's just crazy. And so, it's phenomenal. You don't need your own distribution or shipping. You can hire a qualified personal assistant out of the Philippines for $3 an hour, and she's happy with it. I mean, there's just never been a time where it's better to be an entrepreneur. But more importantly, the ability to handle uncertainty. When you ask the question, what makes my school different? Fundamentally, it's not about the strategies that you learn. Although all the strategies I teach, I call it reinventing entrepreneurship because none of them require money to apply. I'll teach you how to double your business, triple your profits, halve the working time without spending a penny. That's not because I'm smart. It's because just we're taking better time to think smarter. Yeah. But what makes it different, and this is where business schools fall down, and this is what I would encourage every entrepreneur to do when they're looking for mentorship, regardless of who it's from, is understand that skills, strategy, tactics will only get you so far, and you can learn them anywhere these days, free. The entire Harvard Business School syllabus is free online if you go and look for it. Siri will teach you sales and marketing these days. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So it can't be the content. It's never the actual strategies on how to successfully run a business or be an entrepreneur. It is always who is applying those strategies. And that's an area business schools run away from, don't teach, don't look at, don't even go there. Why? They're not qualified. They have no clue. I'd rather teach you, how to structure the company formation in a way that makes it better for your HR tree or whatever crap they teach. And I'm not being too detrimental against business schools. They have a role. But if you go to think you're going to go to business school and then qualify to be a better entrepreneur, I've got news for you. Not going to happen. Yeah. And so if you may be better understanding fundamentals of business practice and business maintenance, and that's useful. But it's not going to make you a better entrepreneur. Yeah, when you're panicking to make payroll on Friday and you're going to make 4 people redundant and you've got to pull it out of the bag or your family doesn't eat. That's entrepreneurship, being able to step up in those times. Yeah. So understanding it's who's applying it. What are you doing to work on you, your patterns, your limitations, your beliefs, your level of resourcefulness that you bring to the table. So, 3 predominant things I'd advise entrepreneurs. 1, if there's ever a time to get busy, now's the time. Yeah, get busy. 2nd, learn to handle uncertainty. How do you do that? Appreciate that certainty doesn't exist. Ultimately, there is none.
Yeah.
3rd, practice the fundamental tradecraft of being an entrepreneur that starts with your ability to get resourceful. There's never going to be enough resources. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have the right staff. That's part of the game. Yeah, that if you're chasing the sort of Pollyanna version of that, then good luck. I've never found it in 30 years, and that's okay because you're not meant to. You're meant to grow through the challenges of that. You don't go to the gym and have the weights lift themselves. Right? That's this. We choose this environment to play in, and we're going to get strong at it. Just like new parent gets strong at being a parent, and they've never had lessons. So get out there and go play. But if you get resourceful, it is the number 1 skill of being an entrepreneur. Not, I don't have the resources, I'll make the excuses, and therefore I can blame other people. No, get resourceful. You don't have the money, there's always a way to find it. You don't have the time, there's always a way to leverage it. You don't have the answers, there's always a way to tap into them. So jump right now, get going. 2, accept the fact you're going to face massive uncertainty. And 3, focus on being able to get resourceful.
Amazing. There's a lot of gentlemen in my group as well, my men's group that I work with. They have a burning desire. They know there's something they want to create. They want to get out there. They want to do something different. But they can't come up with an idea. They're having trouble with the creative process. How can somebody begin in that process? How can somebody look for inspiration or get the creative juices flowing to come up with an idea that they can turn into a business?
First of all, you need to set the intention. Most people don't understand how the brain works at a level of neuroscience because you're constantly scanning information so fast, so completely, that if you were still one of those people that read newspapers, I try to discourage that in people, but if you were to open a newspaper, before you've read the first word, your unconscious has already read both sides, every word, and processed it. To the point where it's even making connections between different columns, and that's why all of a sudden you don't know why, but your eyes suddenly drawn to one part of the newspaper, and you start to look at something. We've all had that. That happens to catch your attention. We've all had that. So your unconscious is constantly scanning. Now it deletes, distorts, and generalizes 99% of that information plus. And what it does, it picks up the rug and it sweeps it under the conscious carpet. So you have right now, let's say, a desire to want to start a business, but you don't know what you want to do. How focused are you on demanding that your brain starts looking for opportunity, rather than have some half-assed conversation with it that, well, maybe I'll sit here and try to figure it out, and if it shows up, I'll deal with it, which is essentially the amount of power that goes into most people's decisions. The reticular activating system, which is the part of the brain that essentially flags up to the conscious the fraction of 1% of information that is being swept under the conscious carpet, has a couple of criteria. One is that if the information comes from the amygdala is evolved essentially for the brain to notice positive before negative, negative before positive. And the reason for that is a survival instinct. You walk past a tree and you miss an apple, no big deal. You walk past a tree and miss a snake, could be a big deal. Therefore, the amygdala is constantly scanning anything that could essentially be threatening to survival. That gets a free pass to the front of the line, marches up to the reticular reticular activating system says, hey, listen, flag this up into conscious awareness. That's why when you're sleeping awake driving half the time, you're unconscious thinking of your gas bill or whatever, you always manage to catch the brake lights of the car in front of you at the last minute. It'll flag it up.
Always, yeah.
Yeah. So the reticular activating system only allows two things into the conscious awareness. One is if the amygdala comes up with a guest pass. And the second is things that you have voted on as being important. So your 6-year-old daughter says, hey, Daddy, yeah, I really want a bike for my birthday. And she's going on about it. And you're driving to work next day. And, you're heading down past Burrard Bridge, past Granville. And all of a sudden, what shows up? A bike shop. And it's like, wow, and there's a bike shop. Now, same route you've taken for the last 3 years going to work. You never noticed the bike shop. Your reticular activating system did because it reads both sides of the newspapers and shoves it all under the carpet. But now you've told it it's relevant, so boom, it pulls it out of all of that information and flags it up. So let's take that back to the example of I want to start a business, what do I want? Well, for the first thing you want to do is tell your reticular activating system that you are looking for opportunity. You don't whisper. You don't try and hope it picks up the subtle hints. Yeah, you declare, you demand, you inform. You call that bad boy on his job. Say, hey, dude, all right, I am looking for opportunity. I am searching. I will do whatever it takes. I am open. And you make that sense of declaration. Now, what that does, it focuses the mind. Intention is a huge part of communicating to the metaphysical. Intention, there's a lot of different variations on interpretations of what intention actually is.
Sure.
Yeah. Science hasn't got a clue. Yeah, if you say, "Oh, I'm gonna wiggle my finger," and look, I'm wiggling my finger. Well, what wiggles the finger? Someone says, "Well, it's the thought of the finger wiggling." Well, no, because I'm thinking of wiggling my finger right now, and it's not moving. So it can't be that. No, it's the electrical impulses generated by the brain that flow down the arm, and then cause the muscles to contract, and my finger wiggles. Yeah, but that's the after product of what something that precedes that changes it from the thought to the action. What's the link pin? Well, science is pretty silent about that. The closest we can come up with on that side is a word called intention. But intention for me is absolute clarity of what it is that you want, fused with the determination and the will to act on making it happen.
Right. Absolutely.
That's intention. So you have to have that level of intention to say, I'm looking for opportunity right now. Now, okay, so at least you're going to be scanning. Now you want to say, well, what kind of opportunity do you want to get into? Because if that's all you're going to put out there, and you're coming from a place of scarcity because of patterns you picked up from 0 to 7, then guess what? You're going to be looking and filtering that opportunity through what's the fastest way I can make money.
Yeah.
Not what am I passionate about, not what would I enjoy doing. So then you're going to design yourself into a deal that you're going to not enjoy, and then you're going to start resisting, and then it's all going to go downhill. We've all been there.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
So instead, ask it again, focusing questions. Yeah, your brain is like a compass needle, and as soon as you ask a question, you can point that baby where you want. So ask better questions. Here's a great question to ask. If I knew it was impossible to fail, what would I do? Because now you take fear off the table. I've got a free shot. Here's another one. All right? If I could only spend my life doing one thing and I knew I'd be successful, what would it be? Oh, and better choose the right thing, get picky. Third question, what lights me up? And if you can't answer that, just think back to when the last time you were lit up was and figure out what it was that did it. Why get involved in something that doesn't light you up? You're going to resist it. You're going to not want to get out of bed. You're going to have to rely on willpower. You're going to self-sabotage at some point, even if the opportunity to make money is there. So no, there's too many ways to turn your passion into profit these days.
Right. So training yourself to be aware of those opportunities that are maybe coming into your awareness at all times, right?
Absolutely.
In my own experience, in my entrepreneurial journey, plus my own personal growth, I find that the journey never ends in terms of growth and acquiring knowledge, and I'm constantly, learning, reading, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, searching for mentors. And you're a very accomplished businessman. You're now in the position of coaching people to move them into a better direction in their life. But even for you, I feel like, let me ask you, do you continue to learn? Do you continue to grow? And if so, what are the resources you turn to in order to broaden your own horizons?
The day that I stop learning, people, that should be the day they stop listening. Certainly to me. Yeah, that's not a game. You could live 1,000 lifetimes here and still be making distinctions. It's about evolution. And isn't that what the nature of reality in the physical world has been since the last 400 million years? Everything's evolving. It's like saying, oh, when should nature stop evolving? Well, I don't know. Right? It seems to be constantly going on a path right now of, apart from us humans, which haven't quite got the message yet, to constantly evolve into higher and higher levels of complexity and cooperation and growth and contribution. And wow, I mean, that's pretty cool. Right? Otherwise, we'd all still be bacteria, moving into amoebas. Yep. So, if you apply that on a bigger scale, when should we stop? Well, you're never going to stop learning. The challenge there is most people that have an association to learning being traditional education, where they spent most of their time praying for the end so they could get the hell out. And I think, oh God, I don't want to keep learning. I want to get to a place where I'm done. Well, there's no exam to pass on life. This is a constant journey of exploration and discovery, and in awe and wonder. That's the journey of life. And you don't want to go to your grave at 90 odd years old with the mind of a 20-year-old. That's not what life's about. You don't evolve that way. It's constantly reinventing yourself. When you're 30 years old, you look back at the 20-year-old version of you and thought, wow, what an idiot. I was so naive, I knew nothing. But at least now I know how the world works. Then at 40, you look back at where you were at 30 and thought, wow, how naive was I at 30? At least I know how the world works. And hopefully, when you're 90, you're going to look back and say, what an idiot I was at 80. It's the same game. If you're not amazed about how naive you were yesterday, you're standing still. And that's constantly love. So how often do I learn? Every single day. How often do I make an intention to learn? Every day. I was in my meditation room this morning and I was reading. Now, I happen to be reading a book I've read 3 times before, and I happen to make new distinctions out of it this morning, as I knew I would.
Yeah.
Because I'm a different person now to when I read it the second time.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow I'll be up and I will have a part of my morning routine where I'm constantly learning, and I really enjoy that. It's part of my day I really get to appreciate.
Absolutely. Quick question about your meditation practice. Meditation seems to be blowing up everywhere. Everyone seems to be talking about meditation, claiming that they do meditate. What are the main benefits that you receive from doing that daily meditation practice?
See, there's it's a bit like love. I mean, it's one word and many meanings. They have many different interpretations, many different variants of what people do, reasons why they do, and what they get out of it. And for me, demystify it a little bit. I mean, meditation is predominantly the act of training the mind to be quiet. It's a way to be able to, or now I'll rephrase that. It's a way of being able to separate yourself from the illusion that you are your mind. Now, if you can do that, your sense of self will allow you to be part, even if the mind is still noisy. Doesn't matter. You're observing it from that perspective, from a deeper place. And what it does, it allows you to de-stress in a world where push notifications, everybody's a walking doorbell. So for many people, meditation is a way to try to react against the stresses of everyday life, and it's a very useful way to do that. So that's why it's kind of blown up, because the amount of stress that most people have gone through in the last 10 years of our evolution in the post-millennial world has blown up. So it's a natural counterbalance to that. If you want to take it further, meditation is also a gateway into the quantum realm. It allows you to essentially do what every credible scientist, physicist on the planet right now will tell you is possible, which is to affect reality with your mind. We've known this since 1927, and ever since then, every physicist or scientist, or claimed to be a scientist, that has hung on to the materialistic version of life has fallen short. Life itself is not what we think of it as. It isn't. This is not solid matter. It's frozen light. You go in with a camera, there's nothing there. You go into a subatomic particle that makes up everything. It's 99.9 to the power of 6% zero. Nothing. Energy. Wave. And as soon as we don't observe it, it reverts back into a wave. And just how it is. I've got my own theories on that, but let's not get too far. So meditation is a way to be able to access a communication protocol with, let's call it life. The formless, the field, the quantum soup, whatever label you want to put on, I'm not going to get hung up on. But whatever it is that is reacting to the observer effect that is being observed. So that's a different type of meditation. But one can only do it when the mind is disengaged. You can't do that from a state of high stress. You can't talk to the quantum field from a place of beta consciousness, or even high alpha. You won't get there. There's no door that's going to open. There's too much from a place of resistance. Not going to happen. So on that note, meditation can be a very useful practice of transcending the sort of physical reality of trying to fight with life to get what you want rather than work with it as a partner.
Right. Absolutely. I just want to zoom out a little bit and look at things from a little bigger perspective. And another common question that kind of comes up that I hear frequently is the idea of wanting to, produce more, make more money, start a business, whatever that happens to be, but also being okay with what you already have, and not just producing for the sake of producing and being on that hamster wheel of always wanting to gain and get more and make more money, whatever that happens to be. And how can people, we need money to live. That's the way our society works. How can people navigate those questions of, I need to be comfortable, make a healthy living, and I also want to be satisfied with what I already have and have enough?
Well, let's look at the basics of money for a second. So you've got a situation where everybody's craving money, and the reason for that is because they unfortunately follow a fundamentally flawed society conditioned model of linking their self-worth to their net worth. And therefore, in order to avoid the fear that they're not enough, which most people do anything to avoid, they feel a solution to that is to go create as much wealth as they can so that they can feel secure and respected and approved of and everything else. Of course, it'll never happen. You think, I'll be there when I make my first million, and then you get miserable at your first million because you thought you should be happy, but now you're just more anxious because you've got to make another million in case you lose the first, and so on and so on. So when you look at the concept, when you're able to unhook your self-worth and your net worth together, then that's a huge jump. But if you go a little further and say, what actually is wealth? What is wealth? Because it can't be based upon money. Here's why. If, let's say, I don't know, Jimmy Patterson right now was down to his last $1 million, he would probably have a different sense of self around that than if you had $1 million on the table right now. Probably a guess. You would feel slightly more wealthy, and he would feel probably a lot less wealthy.
Absolutely.
So it can't be the money. The money has nothing to do with wealth. Right? Because if it did, then the same million would make everybody feel the same thing. It's not like temperature, where I crank the temperature to 50 Celsius. Everybody's going to feel that the same. Everyone's going to be sweating.
Exactly.
Or minus 20 if you want to go to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, money doesn't do that universally to everyone. Everyone has wildly different associations to it. So it can't be the money. So what is wealth? Well, I'll tell you what I believe wealth to be. It seems fairly simple. I'm a pretty simple guy. I try to chunk it down. Wealth is nothing more than the perception of abundance. So conversely, let's look at what poverty is. Poverty is nothing more than the perception of scarcity. Now, when I understand that concept, I can start seeing where I'm trapped on this hamster wheel of chasing the more. Can everybody find something in their life that they can be grateful for in terms of abundance? Because usually abundance is triggered by gratitude. And it's perception. And if you go to Africa, there's kids there that feel a lot wealthier because they got an extra spoon of rice than some kid in downtown that didn't get the supersized cheeseburger. So again, it's the perception of abundance, the perception of scarcity. Usually the perception of abundance triggered by gratitude, and the perception of scarcity triggered by fear.
Right.
Fear of loss. Again, all perception. It's a mind game. The only place that battle is taking place is in here, in the mind. So how do you set yourself up to win? Well, think of something that's abundant in your life. And I don't care what your story is. I don't care if the only thing you can write on your list is oxygen. Right? There is an abundance in your life in many areas, and most people just completely forget that.
Right.
How do you get in touch with that? Well, start looking around, start asking better questions, start focusing on what's scarce in your life, which means, I don't have the car that my next door neighbor has, and start focusing on the fact that the car that you've got is better than the one that the kid in Africa will never have. And what that'll do, it'll start, I'm not saying cut your goals down or think small. There's a distinction here. What I'm saying is if you can start from a place of abundance to begin with, then you're free to go and chase your next million from a place of freedom, from a place of appreciation, from a place of not linking your self-worth and net worth, from a place of not making it life or death, from a place of not lying awake at night, stressed out of your mind. And consequently, you tend to get that next million a lot quicker because you also know you don't need it. It's nice to have. And in today's world, yes, there are certain games that we are forced to play or they play us. Money is one of them. You live in modern society, you are playing the money game, and unless you're playing it intelligently, it's playing you. Case closed. And unfortunately, most people don't have financial literacy as an option in school. So therefore, there are many very experienced, very well-funded corporations that hire some very smart people out of places like Harvard to sit on Madison's Avenue to essentially figure out how to play the money game better than you by influencing you to buy their crap that you don't need so that you can feel better about yourself to cover up insecurities that then, they've won the game. So if you're not playing it intelligently, it's playing you. Money is one of those games. There's three of them, but money's one of them.
Absolutely. Zooming out a little bit further, thinking even bigger picture, looking at what's going on around the world, what do you feel is one of the biggest problems facing humanity at this point in time?
Easy. Humanity.
Yeah.
The world's fine. The world, 500 million years from now, this planet's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You and I, slightly different matter. But, and I say that half tongue in cheek. We have a fundamental responsibility to appreciate our role on this planet. And again, I get a little bit more philosophy here. My philosophy, sure. I've got no right to impose it on anyone else, but it kind of works for me. Because I don't really have a huge amount of clue what's going on in the world according to the media, because I don't watch media. I have absolutely no clue, right? I've got no clue who's running for president in the US apart from some guy called Donald Trump, right? Which I think everybody else will be able to validate. But I don't even know who's running against him, what he's running. I have no interest, zero, none. I didn't even know the UK had a new female prime minister until about 3 weeks after she was elected. No, it doesn't interest me. I spend all my time, effort, and energy focusing on my world, not the world or the microscopic glimpse of the world that the media want to focus your attention on for a different agenda other than your personal interests. And so for me, the biggest challenge with humanity is a lack of appreciation of understanding that we're really here to evolve from a place of responding to higher levels of challenge from love instead of fear.
Yeah.
And that's at whatever level. So for us, it may be a case, do we have the ability to transcend that? Of course we have the ability. It doesn't guarantee we'll do it by any stretch. But if you go to most ecosystems, a lot of them are fire driven. Yeah, we may have to lose a few billion people on this planet in order to wake up to the point where we suddenly realize, well, maybe the new shoots need to start coming through because the dead wood was choking out the grass. That's part of the game. And
right.
do I worry about that? I don't lose a wink of sleep. Why? Everything in the physical world is subject to the law of impermanence. By the very nature of us being physical, our destination is non-physical. I don't think, not even the best cosmetic advert for longevity is going to convince me otherwise. On that one, I don't care how much your face cream's worth, right? So, we're going to find out amount of time. Can we learn some lessons, grow up emotionally, and pass them on? Kind of seems a better deal right now than coming from fear, scarcity, and how do I defend my shit and attack yours, and look out for myself, because nowhere in nature does that work. An ecosystem works on cooperation. Evolution works on cooperation. We're working on, I'm going to take my stuff, I'm going to defend it, and if I need it more than you, you're not getting it. That's fear, as opposed to love, which is, wow, I don't have a huge amount, but you need it as more than I do, I'm happy to share. That's emotional maturity. Hard to do when we're still covering up patterns that we got from 0 to 7 on why mum and dad weren't perfect, and why I'm using blame to try to prove to the world that my life would be great if it wasn't for fill in the blank.
Yeah, gotcha. Even more bigger, broader question. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and you could change anything that you wanted in the world, in people, anything you want, one wish, and you could change, what would that be?
Ooh. I mean, I'm fairly vocal around the fact that I have absolutely no right to impose my model of the world onto anybody else. However, if that magic wand happened to fall at my feet, my biggest wish would be for people to transcend their limitations, to be open to their own personal journey of growth so that they could recognize their own greatness. That's all I do as a coach, as a teacher, as a mentor. My job is to do nothing more than hold up a mirror to show you how freaking awesome you are and get you to believe it as much as I believe it until you believe it. Case closed. And if I could open up that in people for themselves, wow. I mean, then we're starting a movement.
Yes.
I mean, think about this. World War II, Adolf Hitler, in one generation, nearly changed the entire face of the modern world. If he'd not been stopped, most people right now would be speaking German.
Yeah.
And he managed to do that in one generation by coming from hate instead of love. What could we do in one generation if we came from love instead of hate? If he can come that close, what could we do? If we can get people, if I could wave that magic wand and get people to associate to being able to contribute to the greater good through the best of who they are to the world, rather than to, come from this media conditioned programming of why things should be negative or it doesn't work or take rather than give, then wow, I mean, Andy, you and I could make a big difference.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, I know you don't listen to the mainstream media much at all, so I don't know if I should even ask this question right now, but the final note, what would you say about the entire political situation in the United States, Donald Trump, Hillary, and what's your take on even the fact that a guy like Donald Trump was able to rise up to that level of power? What's your take on that?
Well, yes, I don't do politics in any way, shape, or form, but I'll certainly give you my views. For a start, most people are lacking certainty. I think we've established that at the beginning of this call. Therefore, if they're coming from that low level of vibration, low level of consciousness, where they're almost screaming out or begging to be led, Anybody that has more certainty is a target to follow, is an attractive path. My hallucination here, and I don't know because I don't watch, and I didn't even know it was Hillary on the other side, but it doesn't surprise me. If you go to my experience, if you go to most conferences, conventions, and they're all behind their candidate. Oh yes, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a this, that, the other. And you ask them, well, what are the fundamental qualities that you're supporting in your candidate? I don't know, I'm just voting Democrat. It's don't get me started. But politics today, unfortunately, is not what politics was originally designed for. And that is, there's a big difference now between politicians and statesmen. See, a statesman, a true statesman, in my opinion, is somebody that is willing to step up there and risk being unpopular for what they believe to be the greater good. Last person that was able to do that was Nelson Mandela. I've worked a lot with the Mandela Legacy Foundation in South Africa there, and his ability to come out of prison on Robben Island after 27 years, when a country's on the brink of civil war and 95% of the non-white population is now saying, "Brilliant! Now finally, it's our turn. We've got a colored guy in as president. Yeah, now it's payback." And he stepped through that, transcended, and says, "No, He knew where that would lead. 30 million people trying to kill each other. And not just blacks and whites, but all sorts of shades in between. And what do? He says, no. If I can forgive them, what excuse you got? And he united a country under the name of the Rainbow Nation, genius, to band together and transcend one of the most suppressed cultures in modern times. And so he was willing to be unpopular. Now, the challenge here in traditional politics, the way it's set up, is self-defeating. Because even if you take somebody like Barack Obama in his first term, when he was senator and he was running for president, a lot of people got behind him because they thought it represented change, something fresh. And I believe that he was very authentic in a lot of the promises that he made, a lot of the intentions that he set. And he came across authentically, which is why he got a lot of the vote. However, the day that he was voted as president, that agenda had to change. And whether he liked it or whether he didn't, every decision he made from that point on had nothing to do with whether he believed it was right or not. It first had to get filtered through, will this impact my re-election in 4 years from now?
Yes.
And at that point, you've got a different leader, regardless of their initial intention. So politics is fundamentally flawed. Now, is it better than a dictatorship? If it's somebody like Saddam Hussein, well, better the devil you know.
Yeah.
But I just lived in the UAE for 6 years, which is a very benevolent dictatorship, essentially. And if you go to China, and the Chinese system is still avant-garde communist at its political head. But I'll tell you something, it gets stuff done. Now, let's not get into human rights abuses and that kind of stuff, different conversation. But there are things to be said for different models. Traditional democracy, in my view, is an illusion. We just had this whole Brexit thing in England. People say, oh, did you vote in or did you vote out? Are you kidding me? I didn't vote. Last thing in the world I wanted to do. Didn't follow the, what, really? How do you do that? Well, let me explain my version. I saw so many people get so wound up, probably seeing this in the States, so wound up about, I've got to be in or got to be out or got to be this. And they put so much energy, so much thought time, so much of their life force into this argument, which ultimately, let's just roll the numbers. Governments come, governments go. Policies get made, policies change. That's the way it's always going to be. So whatever you vote for now is likely not going to be there 3, 4, 5 years from now. Just, basic intelligence. So rather than take all of this vibrant energy that you're taking away from your life, your folks, and putting it into the illusion of democracy. Why do I say the illusion of democracy? Because you get to vote which government goes in, but at that point, you get absolutely no say in what they do. That's crazy. Oh, I got to vote for the government. I got them in. Therefore, it's democratic. Yeah, but okay. But the decisions they're making tomorrow, what impact do you have on that? Oh, never thought of that. It's not democracy, right? So, I would rather take all of that energy of mine and focus it into dealing with the inevitable change that's coming up in front of me. tax is going to go up, tax is going to change. Gas is going to rise. Tax is going to fall. Legislation is going to move this way. If I've got 100% of my energy focused on what's in front of me to be able to deal with that, I'm far more resourceful than taking half of it into a political, cloud in the sky fairy tale of thinking that I'm making some difference by signing a piece of paper. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Focus on yourself, right? So.
Focus your energy on being able to be the best version of you that you can be, so that you can give more to the world that the government are pretending that they're going to do if you vote them in.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's an amazing note to end this podcast on, and I really think that our listeners are going to appreciate this. So, thank you very much for joining us on Vancouver Real today. Is there anything else that you want to throw out there before we end it today?
Only to say to anybody listening, thank you so much for giving Annie and myself your time. It's the one thing that we never get back once we spend it. And if there's one thing you can take out of this today, just one thing, go make a difference, but try to use it in a way that adds value to somebody else. You're good enough. You were born good enough. You're grateful. And whether it's going to give your dogs a kiss, like you can hear mine in the background, right? Or whether it's going to put a smile on somebody else's face. Know that whatever it is that you are and who you are, you're able to make it work. Don't ever believe anybody who says you haven't got the right to, or you can't do it. They don't have the right to say it. And with that, go out, swing the bat, squeeze every drop out of life. We're not here forever in this current form. And go make it happen.
Yeah, excellent. Well, very wise words. Thank you very much for joining us on Vancouver Real. And perhaps next time you're in Vancouver, we could meet in person and, who knows, go to the Grouse Grind or something. I know you lived in Vancouver for a little while, so.
I did indeed, down on Beach Avenue for 3 years. So
awesome.
It's a beautiful place.
Thank you so much, and until next time.